Hey everyone, this is Ashley and Nicole with Read With Me Sis. If you're new here, we give unapologetic and unprofessional book reviews weekly. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below. And for spoiler-free reviews, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. So today we are going to be doing a review for I feel like kind of a controversial book out there in the Bookstagram world and book talk world. We'll be reviewing Haunting Adeline. Haunting Adeline is a dark romance. And before we get into too many details of the book, I do want to go ahead and list off some of the trigger warnings that might trigger some of you, if not a lot of you out there. Only because we also might mention some of these things in this review. So if any of these are your triggers, please shut the video off now and do not continue watching. With that being said, I'll just go ahead and read directly from what the author has said are the trigger warnings in this book. The contents are very dark with triggering situations, such as non/dubcon, which means non-consent and dubious consent between the main characters. Graphic violence, human trafficking, stalking, child trafficking, child sacrifice, mentions of child death, and explicit sexual situations. There are also particular kinks such as gunplay, somnophilia, bondage, and degradation. Your mental health matters. So again, there are a lot of triggering topics that we might be discussing in this review, and there are plenty of triggering topics in this book. So if you are not into dark romance, or if you have never read dark romance before, please be warned, this is not for the beginner. And so with that, I think we can kick it off. I read this book months ago. I personally really like this book, and I'm not really sure what that says about me after we just said all those trigger warnings. Mom, if you're watching, please stop.
Turn it off.
Turn it off. But I did actually really enjoy this book. I recommended this book to Nicole, so I actually been dying to hear what she thought of the book. So we're going to let us know what her likes and dislikes were first, and then I'll go ahead and share some of mine.
Yeah. So if you guys have not read Haunting Adeline, this is a stalker romance. So the main characters don't actually meet. She starts getting stalked by the main male character, which was new for me, and probably most of us. So with that came a lot of, like Ashley said, the consensual, non-consensual, dub consensual smut scenes, and those weren't really my favorite. I think I didn't really love the first half of this book for that reason. It's really hard to read for me. It's not my vibe. I've read other books like that too, and I kind of just skip over the scenes. So it was the first half of this book was very, very hard for me to read. After the smut got consensual, I did enjoy it. The smut that is consensual is so good. So good. But before that, it was really hard for me to stomach. But I did like the plot of this book in a murder mystery aspect, because as we're getting the story for the main characters, you also get the story for one of the great-grandparents, Gigi. Mm-hmm. Who ended up getting murdered a long time ago, and she's finding that out in the book. And you're also getting letters written by the great-grandma, who was also stalked and loved her stalker as well. So there's lots of stalker love going on in this book.
If stalker vibe is not your trope, it might not be the book for you.
It's definitely not the book for you. It's the whole book. But I did like the murder mystery aspect, because you are trying to figure out the whole book who killed Gigi. Gigi. You get all these clues. You get to read letters written by her throughout the whole book. There's multiple people that you think it is at one point. And I do really like how that played out. It was kind of wild how her murder trickled down through generations, and it kind of brought everyone back together with the main character and the people she meets even in the book, and connected to her grandma's murder. So the murder mystery was so good. I thought I really, really liked it. I also it's weird thing to but we don't get a lot of books that shine light on human trafficking, I don't think. And it was really hard to read at some points, the graphic scenes and just what they were doing to the women and the children. But I did appreciate that it was so different. from a lot of books I've ever read. Like, I don't think I've ever read a book that had like the human trafficking plot. And it was also cool to see our morally gray male character shine in his light of being like the good guy, because you realize, oh, like he's kind of fucking psycho, but he's also kind of a good guy.
Kind of psycho? He's pretty fucking crazy.
my boy fucked up. He's a good guy in the outside world because he's catching human traffickers and pedophiles, and I thought that was just like a very different aspect than we normally get from most books, so I did like that as well. Another dislike for me, the nicknames. I mean, they were so cringy. Like, little mouse, I think, was one, but then also he kept saying little girl, and like it just gave me the ick. I'm all for a daddy kink. Don't get me wrong. I love a daddy kink, but like she took it real far with those nicknames, and that for me, it just was not my vibe. I did not like, she called him kitty cat and she was like little mouse, and like that was just like so gross to me. I didn't love it. So that was like mainly all of my likes and dislikes for this book. Again, smut, top tier in the second half of the book. I like the ending, the cliffhanger, the plot twist, all that stuff. So good. But the first half was just very hard to swallow. And then again, the nicknames, man, the nicknames.
Yeah. I think I can agree with you. I don't know if the nicknames really did it for me. Little Mouse. Although I will say, when she called him kitty cat, I think there was more of a sarcastic tone to that than like a sexual tone, in my opinion. Like, that was more of her just like making fun of him because he kept calling her little mouse. So I don't know if that one gave me the cringe, but yeah, the little girl stuff was a little much for me. I'll just say it outright. I love this book. I have said that more than once. I've read this book more than once. Nicole is absolutely right. There is a lot of like non-consensual scenes in the beginning, although I think it's objective. You know, I think that for me, I don't know if I truly saw them. There was probably one scene where I was like, oh, that's not really consensual. That did kind of like take me off guard, and that was the gun scene. The gun scene was a little much. A little. It was a lot. It definitely had me putting the book down and being like, what the fuck did I just get myself into? But then you're like, okay, gotta keep going. Because, and I will say this, I'll just start off with my likes. The plot in this book is so good. I have given reviews of dark romance novels, and it's bad, right? Like, there's too much smut, there's no plot. That is not the case with this book. H.D. Carlton did a phenomenal job of balancing the spice with a phenomenal plot. And when I say phenomenal, I mean this plot is multifaceted. We have so many different plot lines going on. This is a dual point of view book. So we have Addie's point of view and we have Zaid's point of view. And there's a lot of times where like those stories aren't really overlapping outside of the stalker aspect, right? So in the beginning, he is stalking her, but their own stories are starting to play out. So we get these different plot points, and then they all get tied in together. So there's the murder mystery of her grandmother, Gigi. There's the plot aspect of him being a, undercover, like essentially does like these stings to catch child traffickers and like rescue children and rescue women. He's a huge like IT tech guy, has these crazy tech skills. The characters are built out really well in this. They're not just like the superficial characters where you just get a little bit of background on them and then the author focuses on all the smut or all the spice. That's not the case here. They are really well thought out characters, well-rounded characters with flaws. And of course, we do have that morally gray male main character, which I love. I loved it. There was a lot of morally gray out of him, but I think for me, I just had to step back and accept the fact that like he was crazy. Like there was no denying it. Like he even admits that he's kind of unhinged, and he knows that what he's doing to Addie in the beginning as far as the stalking goes is wrong. So you just roll with that storyline, I guess. It's a trope. This is fiction, guys. I mean, whatever tickles your fancy. And it just so happens that I guess I like a stalker trope. I don't know. I was here for it. So I love that. Beast Spice, yes, I agree, was probably some of the best spice I've like ever read. I mean, this is like, it's steamy, guys. Like, this is a hot book. But again, if you are not into dark romance, you're not going to like this book. I mean, there has been so many times where I've watched reviews or read reviews and people have torn this book apart, and kind of unfairly, because they start out saying, I don't like dark romance. Well, I'm sorry, sis, then why did you read this book? Because this is one of the darkest of the dark romances. Again, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the beginner. This is some, like, ease yourself into this book, because there is a lot of stuff that is going to really disturb you. But just like when you watch horror flicks, you know, like there's some disturbing aspects in scary movies and, you know, murder mysteries. It's kind of the same thing. Like, you just have to take it for what it is. I was not crazy. Not everyone's going to agree with me. I did not like Sibby's character. And I'm kind of bummed, because her next duet that she's going to be releasing is going to be about Sibby.
Oh, good.
I did read the novella, which is technically like a prequel. So I had a little bit of Sibby's background and understanding to Sibby before I read this book, which I do think kind of helps, because it's essentially the scene where they're in the like carnival, like fun house. It's that, like, that's the novella, but from Sibby's perspective, which was interesting, but Sibby's just too much for me. Like, she's just a lot. She is schizophrenic, and I feel like it's just a weird exploitation of her character. I don't know. I wasn't here for that part. So that is a dislike for me with this book.
Do you think you're biased because you read the book first, though? Because I don't have that background for her. So, like, I didn't read the other book, and I didn't feel like that towards her character.
Maybe. Yeah. I would say maybe, because her character isn't terrible towards the end. Like, she does kind of disappear and take off. And she does almost add some like weird comedic relief in the book. But I think you're right. I am a little biased because I read that novella.
Her character was such a minute part, I feel like, in this book, that for me, she was just like a random. Yeah. So I didn't have that like I didn't like dislike her character. I didn't love her character, but she was just another plot point to me. I feel like.
Right. And she does play in, you know, she definitely plays into the storyline. So, maybe I will give her duet a second try. I probably will. I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to read both those books because I love H.G. Carlton. But I guess just like if we're only talking about this book, I wasn't crazy about Sibby being a part of it. Okay. And I also really hated the nicknames that Sade had for her. Those were very cringy. And I think that's probably about it for my dislikes. I really did enjoy this book. I was here for the dark, weird ride that it took you on. And I have recommended this to a few people, but like I said, I would never recommend this book for people that like rom-coms or, you know, super happy ending romance books, because that's just not what you're going to get here. You are going to get a cliffhanger. No. And book 2, I know you haven't read it yet, but book 2, it ramps up the trigger warnings. So if you are not okay with these trigger warnings in this book, really don't read this, because you won't be able to read book 2. Book 2 gets a little bit more intense. There's less romance. There is more plot. But it is a hard read at times. So again, I really love this book. I highly recommend it to any of my dark romance babes out there. Definitely just buckle up and be prepared to read some really fucked up scenes. There's a lot of murder. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of kinky sex. And
Addie's a freak too.
Yeah, Addie's a freak. I think that's also why I didn't have too hard of a time with the dub con, because I was like, this bitch loves it. She was into it. Like, again, the gun scene, not so much, but everything else following that, like, she fucking loved it. And so who am I to judge what a girl's kink is? she likes a little dubious consent. I mean, let the girl have it.
Smut, 10 out of 10. Addie's a freak. Zayd's a freak. Let them be freaky together.
They're yes. Let them be freaks
Let
together.
them be little weirdos together.
Yeah, let them be freaks in a fun house together.
The mirror scene.
Yeah, that was a pretty good, might be one of the hottest sex scenes I've ever read in a book.
Yeah, the haunted house scene was...
Yes, it was really
10
good.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
We also have some really good villains, and like the plot twist at the end when it comes to our villains was also really, really good. So again, overall, I love this book. I'll go ahead and give my star rating. And then we can hear Nicole's.
You look nervous.
I know, because I feel like this is like the one where we might actually differ on. I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. Obviously, I've read it multiple times. Again, I don't mind all of the trigger warnings, and I don't even mind like the cringy scenes. Like, I'm just here for it. Again, I think it all kind of played into the characters, the plot, the storyline. And I love a good murder mystery. I love a mystery thriller. I love like plot lines that coincide with each other, and you get all of that here. And I also love like imperfect characters, and all of them in here are pretty imperfect. Addie herself. So I loved it. 5 out of 5. Highly recommend for my dark romance readers out there.
Yeah, so I don't have a 5-star review for this book, which was probably very clear, but I will give it a 4, which I think a 4 out of 5 is a book that I liked it. I almost loved it, I think I would say. Zayd is just probably one of the best morally gray characters ever written, I think. I've read a lot of dark romances where I just couldn't get into it. It was too much smut, not enough plot, and this was the exact opposite, I think. The plot was just so good. So I had a lot of things I liked about this book. I truly did. I just really struggled through the first quarter of the book, and if I'm struggling through like 20% of the book, I just can't commit to a full 5 stars, especially when the cringy scenes did make me cringe to the point where I was like, So that's why I knocked it a star. Again, I did really, really enjoy this book. I will read the second one. I do just need some time. I need like a lighthearted read or a fantasy read or something where I can take a step back, because it was heavy. I mean, it's a heavy book, right?
Yeah, I don't blame you if you need to get a little palate cleanse in there. I totally understand.
So that. I will be reading book 2. I will. It is just going to take me a minute, but 4 out of 5 for this one. And then obviously we will come back when I finish the second book.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a review of book 2, and also her newly released book, Where's Molly, which I'm super excited about. I recommend it. I think Nicole also recommends it, but I think we can be in agreement on only for our dark romance readers, and only if you're okay with these trigger warnings. Please, your mental health is important. Don't ever force yourself to read something just because it's trending out there. If it's not for you, it's just not for you. Not everybody has the same taste, and not everybody has to read the same books. So please be aware of those and be mindful of yourself and take care of yourself first.
Life's too short to read books you don't like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. With that being said, I think that's all for today. Again, if you guys haven't checked out our Instagram page, go ahead. We will have spoiler-free reviews on there. We also have a ton of other book reviews on there that we do outside of videos. So please go ahead and click the link in the bio for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come read with me, sis.